She thought it was menopause. Her doctor told her it was menopause. She spent 3 years believing it was menopause. It wasn't. And by the time she found out what was actually happening in her body, 3 years had passed. 3 years of being told she was fine. 3 years of symptoms getting worse, not better. 3 years of a real, treatable condition going completely unaddressed. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't a hypochondriac. She wasn't imagining things. She was a woman over 60 whose very real symptoms fit perfectly into a category that was never questioned. A category that closed the conversation before it could go any further. I'm Patricia Novak, a women's cognitive health researcher with over 20 years studying how the female brain changes after menopause. And in that time, I've seen this same story play out more times than I can count. Today, I'm going to show you 4 conditions that are routinely mistaken for menopause in women over 60. Conditions that your doctor may not have checked for. Conditions where the symptoms are almost identical, but where what's happening in your body is completely different. And here's what you need to know right now. A 2025 national survey found that nearly 40% of women felt they were misdiagnosed when they went to their doctor with perimenopause symptoms. 40%. That's nearly half of all women seeking answers and leaving without the right ones. Stay with me through all 4, because the last one is the one most women and most doctors never see coming. But first, why this keeps happening menopause has become the catch-all explanation for almost everything a woman over 60 experiences. Fatigue? Menopause. Brain fog? Menopause. Weight gain? Menopause. Mood changes? Menopause. Can't sleep? Menopause. And sometimes that's correct. But sometimes it isn't. Here's what most women are never told. The female body after menopause is in a state of major hormonal reorganization. Estrogen doesn't just disappear cleanly. It shifts. It creates ripple effects across multiple systems at once. And those ripple effects look different in every woman. Here's what that means for you practically. That complexity creates a diagnostic environment where almost anything can be attributed to menopause because almost everything is somehow connected to it. But connection is not the same as cause. And here's where it becomes dangerous. It's probably menopause is not a diagnosis. It's an assumption. Menopause is real. But it has become a diagnosis of convenience, a way to close a conversation instead of continue it. You deserve a doctor who continues the conversation. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what to ask. And the first one is the one most women are living with right now without knowing it. Condition 1. Thyroid dysfunction. This is the most commonly missed condition in women over 60. And the reason is simple. Every single symptom of an underactive thyroid, every single one, can also be explained by menopause. Fatigue that won't go away no matter how much you sleep? Both. Weight that won't budge no matter what you change? Both. Brain fog? Memory problems? Slower thinking? Both. Depression, anxiety, cold intolerance, dry skin, difficulty sleeping? Both. There is not one symptom of hypothyroidism that menopause cannot also produce. According to research published in the medical journal Thyroid, thyroid disease affects between 14 and 20% of women aged 60 to 79. That's up to 1 in 5 women in your age group. And many of them don't know it because their symptoms were attributed to menopause. Now here is the part most doctors miss. Pay attention to this. Most routine blood tests only check one thyroid marker. It's called TSH. And TSH alone can appear completely normal, even when your thyroid is underperforming in ways that directly affect your brain, your energy, and your mood. This is where most women get the wrong answer. Research from the American Thyroid Association confirms it directly. Some women treated for thyroid issues report persistent brain fog and difficulty concentrating despite having normal TSH levels. The TSH looked fine. The woman did not feel fine. A complete thyroid panel, TSH, free T3, free T4, and thyroid antibodies gives a far more accurate picture. Research also shows something that makes this even more urgent. The risk of thyroid disease in women doesn't stay flat with age. It increases. The prevalence of thyroid dysfunction rises specifically around and after menopause, the exact moment when its symptoms are most likely to be attributed to something else. So you have a condition that becomes more common exactly when it's hardest to recognize. That's the gap. And that gap has consequences that are not minor. A study published in PMC on thyroid dysfunction in postmenopausal women listed what unrecognized thyroid disease leads to: increased cardiovascular risk, cognitive impairment, bone fractures, depression, and mortality. Not inconveniences, life-altering outcomes from a condition that a comprehensive blood panel can identify. Has your thyroid ever been tested beyond a basic TSH? If the answer is no, that's your first question for your doctor. Write it down before you finish watching this. Does this sound familiar so far? I want to pause here for a moment. If any of this is resonating, if you've been told it's just menopause and something still doesn't feel right, type same in the comments right now. Because the women who read those comments, they realize they're not crazy. They're not alone. And they're not imagining things. Type same if this is your story. And this is where many women lose years treating the wrong problem. Condition 2, menopause-related cognitive impairment. This one is different, and it's important to understand why. Some cognitive changes are a direct, documented consequence of the hormonal transition. Not dementia, not aging, the transition itself. Research published in Frontiers in Molecular Biosciences confirms something that most women are never told: the cognitive changes of menopause, difficulty with verbal memory, attention, and processing speed, can be so significant that they have sometimes led to misdiagnosis of early Alzheimer's or dementia. Not dementia being mistaken for menopause, menopause being mistaken for dementia. The confusion runs both ways and in both directions. Women receive the wrong answer. The study of women's health across the nation, one of the largest women's health studies ever conducted, following over 16,000 women, found that 44% of women in early perimenopause reported measurable cognitive complaints. Nearly half. And here's what that means for you. If your cognitive symptoms appeared or noticeably worsened specifically around or after menopause, that connection is clinically meaningful. It deserves a specific evaluation, not a general reassurance that menopause affects everyone differently. Stay with me, because this next part is where it gets more complex. Let me simplify it. When estrogen drops, it doesn't just affect your reproductive system. Estrogen has been regulating acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter most directly tied to memory, your entire adult life. It has been reducing inflammation in your brain tissue. It has been protecting the speed at which your neurons communicate. Here's what that means for you. When estrogen drops, all of that changes simultaneously. The mechanism is different from Alzheimer's. The trajectory is different. The intervention is different. But without a proper evaluation, you may never know which one you're dealing with. And you cannot afford not to know. Because there is a difference between, this is normal menopause, it will pass, and this is a recognized clinical pattern, and here is what we can do about it. One closes the conversation. The other opens it. Condition 3, depression showing up as cognitive symptoms. This one surprises most women. Because when they hear depression, they think sadness, crying, can't get out of bed. That's not always what depression looks like after 60. In postmenopausal women, depression frequently presents as cognitive slowing, difficulty concentrating, fatigue that feels bone deep, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, a quiet, persistent sense that you're becoming less of yourself. Sound familiar? A 2025 national survey found that nearly 40% of women seeking care for these symptoms were misdiagnosed, with many receiving prescriptions for anxiety and depression medications while the underlying hormonal cause went unaddressed. But here's what research published in the journal Climacteric confirms: when depression is identified and properly treated in postmenopausal women, cognitive function frequently improves. Not always completely, but measurably, meaningfully, because some of what felt like memory decline was the cognitive weight of untreated depression. And the reverse is equally true. Cognitive decline can cause depression. When memory becomes unreliable, when thinking slows, when your brain stops responding the way it has for decades, the emotional consequence is often profound loss, grief, and a hopelessness that meets clinical criteria for depression. The two are not separate problems. They interact. They compound each other. And treating one without the other almost never produces full relief. This is the part your doctor may miss. Women over 60 are more likely to experience masked depression, where the emotional component is subtle, but the physical and cognitive symptoms are prominent. No obvious sadness, no crying, just a quiet heaviness, a sense of being slightly removed from your own life. That pattern is consistently underdiagnosed and consistently attributed to menopause. If something has shifted in how you feel, not dramatically, but persistently, that shift deserves a real conversation. Condition 4, vitamin B12 deficiency. This is one of the few causes of memory problems after 60 that can actually be reversed. This is the one most women never see coming. And honestly, it's the one I most want you to walk away from this video knowing. Because of the 4 conditions we've covered today, this is the one with the word that almost nothing else in women's cognitive health carries. That word is reversible. Because B12 deficiency is extremely common in women over 60, frequently missed on standard blood tests, and directly linked to cognitive symptoms that look and feel exactly like dementia. Here's why it's so common. As we age, our ability to absorb B12 from food decreases naturally. And 2 of the most widely prescribed medications in this age group, metformin for blood sugar and proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, significantly reduce B12 absorption over time. Many women taking these medications have never been told this. Not once. Here's why it's missed. Standard blood tests measure total B12 levels. And total B12 can appear normal even when the amount of active B12 available to your brain is not sufficient to support healthy neurological function. More specific markers, methylmalonic acid and homocysteine, reveal deficiency that total B12 does not. And here's why it matters. B12 is essential for producing myelin, the protective coating around your nerve fibers that allows signals to travel accurately through your brain and nervous system. When B12 is deficient, signals slow down. Memory suffers. Thinking feels foggy. Mood shifts. Energy drops. Sound familiar? Here is what B12 deficiency looks and feels like in everyday life. Slower thinking. Words that feel harder to retrieve than they used to. Fatigue that doesn't respond to sleep. Tingling or numbness that comes and goes. A general sense that your mind is working harder for results that used to come easily. Now ask yourself, how many of those symptoms have you attributed to menopause? Or to aging? Or simply accepted as your new normal? Because if B12 deficiency is behind any of them, and it has gone untested, you are living with a condition that is both identifiable and, in many cases, significantly treatable. Ask your doctor specifically for methylmalonic acid and homocysteine levels alongside total B12. Write those words down before your next appointment. They're the tests that reveal what total B12 alone does not. What to do right now if any of these 4 conditions resonate with you. Here is exactly what to ask for at your next appointment. Write this down. Seriously, pause the video and write it down. A complete thyroid panel, not just TSH. Free T3, free T4, and thyroid antibody testing. AB12 assessment that includes methylmalonic acid and homocysteine, not just total B12. A specific cognitive evaluation targeted at memory, processing speed, executive function, and attention, not a general checkup. And if mood changes are part of your picture, ask for an evaluation that looks at cognitive symptoms and emotional state together. One integrated clinical picture, not 2 separate conversations filed away at 2 separate appointments. These are not excessive requests. They are what appropriate care actually looks like. If a doctor tells you these tests aren't necessary, ask them to explain why. Specifically, what is the clinical reasoning? You have every right to that answer. And here is something I want you to remember when you walk into that appointment. The women who get the right answers are not the ones who happen to find the right doctor on the first try. They are the women who came prepared, who brought the list, who said clearly, I've been told it's menopause and I need to make sure we haven't missed something else. That's not being a difficult patient. That's being your own advocate. And sometimes it's the difference between 3 more years of the wrong answer and finally hearing the right one. One more thing, everything we've covered today leads to one conclusion. The female brain after menopause is navigating a major hormonal transition without the protective compounds it relied on for decades. And that creates real vulnerabilities that go beyond what routine medical care is designed to catch. Getting the right diagnosis is the essential first step. But once you have that clarity, once you know what you're actually dealing with, the question becomes what you can proactively do to support your brain during these years. And that's where the research becomes genuinely encouraging. Compounds with real scientific backing, not trends, not marketing language, but ingredients with an actual research trail behind them. Lion's mane mushroom, studied for its role in supporting nerve growth factor, the protein that helps neurons survive and grow. Bacopa monnieri, with published human trials showing measurable improvements in memory and cognitive processing speed. Ginkgo biloba, documented for its effects on cerebral circulation and neuroprotection. And spirulina and chlorella, researched for their role in reducing the neuroinflammation that accelerates cognitive decline in women at this stage of life. These aren't a replacement for the medical evaluation we've discussed today, but they represent the kind of targeted, proactive support that the research increasingly recognizes as meaningful, especially for women who are doing everything right and still looking for what more they can do. I've looked carefully at plant-based formulas that combine these ingredients in ways that actually reflect what the published science supports. There's one I keep returning to consistently. It's linked in the description below, not as the answer to everything we've talked about today, but as one considered piece of a larger picture. Take a look at the ingredients and decide for yourself. If this channel is giving you conversations you haven't been able to have elsewhere, please subscribe and hit the bell. I publish content specifically for women over 60 who deserve straight, research-backed answers, and there is a great deal more coming. A final word. The woman I described at the beginning of this video is doing significantly better now. Not because she was lucky, because she refused to stop asking questions when the first answer didn't match what she was living. She sat in that office and said, "I've been told this is menopause for 3 years. I need you to help me make sure we haven't missed something else." One conversation, one full set of tests, one doctor willing to look further. Everything changed. Your experience is data. Your instinct is information. If something tells you the explanation you've been given is incomplete, that feeling is worth taking seriously. Write down the tests from today. Bring them to your next appointment. You have every right to ask. And if this video gave you something useful, share it with a woman in your life who needs to hear it. A friend who's been told it's just menopause. A sister who's been dismissed. A neighbor who stopped asking because the answers stopped satisfying her. This information belongs to all of them. And sometimes, asking one more question is what changes everything. See you in the next video.